It started with a woman sitting quietly on a leather chair in the corner of a towering corporate lobby while employees rushed past her without a second glance. Hour after hour, receptionists ignored her, security guards questioned her presence, junior managers whispered that she looked completely out of place, and executives walked by assuming she was just another visitor with no appointment. By sunset, nearly everyone in the building had treated her as though she were invisible. None of them realized that the woman patiently waiting in that lobby was the one person whose signature appeared on every paycheck they had ever received. Before this unforgettable story begins, if you believe kindness costs nothing but can change someone's entire life, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to spread kindness for more emotional stories that remind us what truly matters. The woman was named Eleanor Brooks, a 63-year-old business owner whose life had never been defined by luxury despite the enormous success she had built. Her silver hair was tied neatly behind her head, her navy blue coat had been worn for years because she believed replacing something useful was wasteful, and she carried the same brown leather handbag she had owned for over a decade. Anyone judging her by appearance would never imagine she controlled one of the country's fastest-growing financial service companies with thousands of employees spread across dozens of offices. Eleanor had started the business 40 years earlier from a tiny rented room with a single wooden desk and one telephone that barely worked. She had survived bankruptcy scares, sleepless nights, heartbreaking sacrifices, and years without vacation simply because she believed every employee deserved stable work and every family deserved financial security. As the company expanded into a nationwide corporation, Eleanor slowly stepped away from public attention. She disliked magazine interviews and never placed her portrait in company buildings. Instead, she appointed professional executives to handle daily operations while she quietly remained the majority owner and chairwoman behind the scenes. Very few new employees even knew what she looked like. Her philosophy was simple. Businesses should never revolve around one person's fame. They should revolve around the people who worked every day to make them successful. Months before that unforgettable day, Eleanor had begun receiving anonymous letters from longtime employees describing a disturbing change inside headquarters. Workers claimed supervisors had become arrogant. Reception staff judged visitors by expensive clothing. Security officers treated delivery workers with disrespect. Cleaning staff were ignored, elderly applicants were rushed away, and anyone who appeared poor was assumed to be unimportant. The culture Eleanor had spent decades building around dignity and compassion was slowly disappearing beneath polished marble floors and expensive suits. Rather than announcing an inspection, Eleanor decided to visit headquarters without informing anyone except her personal driver, who dropped her off before sunrise. She intentionally entered through the main doors wearing ordinary clothing without introducing herself. She simply asked the receptionist if she could wait because she hoped to meet someone from executive management. The young receptionist barely looked up from her computer before handing Eleanor a visitor badge and pointing toward a waiting area. There was no smile. No offer of water. No effort to ask whether she needed assistance. Eleanor quietly thanked her and sat down. An hour passed. Then another. Employees continued entering the lobby carrying expensive coffee cups and designer briefcases. Some accidentally bumped Eleanor's chair without apologizing. Others complained loudly about visitors taking up seating space. One middle manager even instructed security to verify whether the elderly woman had permission to remain inside because she had been waiting far too long. Security politely checked her badge again but never asked whether anyone had forgotten about her appointment. Eleanor simply smiled and thanked them for doing their job. Throughout the morning she watched countless examples of something far more expensive than poor customer service. She watched humanity disappearing. Delivery drivers were spoken to impatiently. Maintenance workers were ignored. An elderly couple seeking employment information left looking embarrassed after receiving impatient answers. A janitor dropped a box of supplies, and dozens of people stepped around him instead of helping. Only one person stopped. A young accounting assistant named Marcus immediately knelt beside the janitor, gathered every scattered supply, carried the heavy box to the storage room, and returned with a bottle of water for the exhausted older man. Marcus noticed Eleanor sitting alone and kindly asked whether she had been helped. She thanked him and assured him she was simply waiting. Marcus frowned with concern. He returned 20 minutes later carrying a sandwich and coffee purchased with his own money because he assumed the company should never leave a guest hungry. Eleanor accepted with genuine gratitude while quietly asking him how long he had worked there. Marcus explained he had joined only 6 months earlier after supporting his younger siblings through college following the death of their parents. He believed the company stood for integrity because that's what its founders supposedly believed. Eleanor smiled warmly but said nothing more. By afternoon, executives began arriving for a quarterly leadership meeting. Luxury cars lined the entrance while assistants hurried through revolving doors carrying presentation folders. None of them recognized the woman patiently sitting near the window. Finally, shortly before the meeting began, Eleanor walked toward the executive floor carrying her visitor badge. The assistant outside the boardroom immediately stopped her and explained that unauthorized visitors were not permitted inside. Eleanor calmly replied that she believed the meeting could not begin without her. Several executives overheard the statement and laughed quietly, assuming the elderly woman was confused. One suggested calling security before she interrupted important business discussions. At that exact moment, the company's chief legal officer stepped off the elevator. His face instantly turned pale. Without saying a word, he hurried toward Eleanor, shook her hand respectfully, and apologized for keeping her waiting all day. The hallway became completely silent. Every executive suddenly realized the woman standing before them was Eleanor Brooks. The founder. The chairwoman. The owner. The person whose approval determined executive promotions, company investments, expansion plans, and every payroll authorization across the entire organization. No one moved. No one spoke. The silence carried more weight than any speech could. Inside the boardroom, Eleanor placed her handbag gently on the polished table before looking around at the leadership team responsible for preserving the company's values. She did not begin by discussing profits. She did not mention stock prices. She did not talk about quarterly growth. Instead, she described everything she had witnessed since sunrise. She explained how respect could never be measured by annual revenue but could always be measured by how ordinary people were treated when nobody believed they were important. She spoke about the janitor nobody noticed, the delivery driver nobody thanked, the elderly visitors nobody welcomed, and the lonely woman everyone assumed was insignificant because her clothes were simple. She reminded every executive that companies never fail because buildings become old. They fail because hearts become cold. Many lowered their heads. Some fought back tears. The receptionist cried openly after realizing how carelessly she had treated the founder. Security officers apologized even though Eleanor reassured them they had only followed instructions. The executives admitted they had become obsessed with appearances, forgetting the culture that had built the company in the first place. Eleanor announced immediate leadership training focused entirely on empathy, respect, and servant leadership. Performance reviews would now include how employees treated co-workers, visitors, contractors, and support staff. Promotions would no longer depend solely on financial results but also on character. Then she surprised everyone again. Marcus, the young accounting assistant who had offered kindness without expecting recognition, was invited to help design the company's new employee culture program. Eleanor explained that leadership begins long before someone receives an impressive title. True leaders reveal themselves through ordinary moments when nobody is watching. Within a year, headquarters transformed completely. Reception staff welcomed every visitor warmly regardless of appearance. Managers regularly assisted maintenance crews during volunteer events. Executives spent one day each month working alongside frontline employees. Employee satisfaction reached record highs, customer loyalty increased dramatically, and the company's financial success grew stronger than ever because respect had once again become its foundation. Eleanor never mentioned the long day she spent waiting in the lobby again. She didn't need to. Everyone who worked there remembered it. New employees heard the story during orientation, not as a warning about embarrassing the owner, but as a reminder that every single person walking through the front door deserved dignity before anyone knew their name. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to comment with one word: kindness. Your comment may inspire someone else to choose compassion over judgment today. As this story comes to an end, if it reminded you that true greatness is shown in how we treat people who seem to have nothing to offer us, please like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to spread kindness. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change a life, a workplace, and perhaps even the world.